TPB's June 15th, 2022 meeting to order. I want to welcome all of those of you here in person and those of us joining us virtually. Being mindful of the continued pandemic conditions and given the space limitations in our meeting room, we are continued to limit the number of people in the room. As conditions improve, we will be able to open the room for more people to be present. I trust the audio and video connections are working well for those of you participating virtually. As always, please call, email, or text staff if you are experiencing any technical difficulties. We continue to live stream the audio and video of the meeting on TPB's YouTube channel. I will briefly review the process staff has devised for the hybrid meeting. Members in the room, please use your microphones when you speak, state your name and jurisdiction, and be sure that you're talking into the microphone and turning it on. For those participating online, a friendly reminder to mute your microphones always, and importantly to unmute your mic and state your name and jurisdiction as well when you speak. That way everyone knows who is talking and when. Members who are participating virtually, please know that staff is monitoring the chat, so please feel free to post your comments or questions in the chat and staff will get it to me. You can also use the raised hand icon if you wish to be recognized. I will also make sure to call on all of you during the discussion and votes that we'll be taking. We are continuing to practice the practice of reviewing public comments online to limit the number of people present in the room, so I will ask staff to report on comments received. A copy of all the comments received is available to us on the meeting webpage. Lynn, would you please take a roll call of board members participating in the meeting today and confirm that we have a quorum?
Certainly, thank you. So I'm going to read down the list. It's being posted on the slideshow as we speak, and I'll list your jurisdiction. If you could state your name, I will capture you. I will also monitor the participant chat in case anyone comes late, and I do know of a couple people that will be joining us late. District Council, Ms. Pinto.
Ella Hansen here for Councilmember Pinto.
Thank you. District Council, Charles Allen.
I'm here.
Thank you. District Council, Christina Henderson.
Here.
Thank you. District Office of Planning.
Tina Khan, representing the DC Office of Planning.
Thank you. District Department of Transportation.
Anna Chamberlain here.
Thank you. And I also saw Mark Rollins. Moving on to Maryland, City of Bowie.
Maddie Bizerto, representing.
Thank you. Charles County.
Reuben Collins, present.
Thank you. College Park.
Patrick Wine, Mayor, present.
Thank you. Frederick County.
Jan Gardner, present.
Thank you. City of Frederick.
Kelly Russell, present.
Thank you. City of Gaithersburg.
Neil Harris is present.
Thank you. City of Greenbelt.
Emmett Jordan is present.
Thanks, Emmett. City of Laurel.
Ryan Lee is present.
Thank you. Montgomery County Executive.
Chris Conklin, representing the County Executive.
Thank you. And Gary Ehrenrich is online.
That's right.
Montgomery County Legislative.
Glenn Orland, representing the County Council.
Thank you. Prince George's County Executive.
Victor Weisberg, representing the County Executive.
Thank you. Prince George's County Legislative. City of Rockville.
Bridget Donald Newton is present.
Thank you. Tacoma Park.
Casey Kostick is present.
Thank you. Maryland House of Delegates. I did get a note that Mr. Corman would be joining virtually and later. He's not here yet, just so you know. Maryland Senate. Maryland Department of Transportation.
Earl Lewis here.
Thank you. Moving on to Virginia. City of Alexandria.
Kanika Guerrero, present.
Thank you. Arlington County.
Tax Carrington is present.
Thank you. City of Fairfax. Fairfax County.
Walter Alcorn, present.
Thank you. Falls Church.
Dave Snyder.
Fauquier County.
Adam Schellenberger, present.
Thank you. Loudoun County.
Corinne Sigsbury, present.
So I heard a very faint voice. I'll double check, and I know Ms. Umstadt was going to be a few minutes late.
This is Corinne Sigsbury.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. City of Manassas.
Pam Sabeski, present.
Manassas Park.
Jeanette Rischel here.
Thank you. Prince William County.
Vic Angry, present.
Thank you.
This is Paula Guita, alternate.
Thank you. Virginia House of Delegates. Virginia Senate.
Senator Dave Marsden here.
Thank you. Virginia Department of Transportation.
Shaffer here, representing John Lee.
Thank you. WMATA.
Allison Davis.
Allison Davis is online. Thank you. Moving on to ex officio, Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration.
Dan Koenig, FTA.
Thanks, Dan. National Capital Planning Commission, Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, and National Park Service. That concludes our roll call. We have a quorum.
Okay, great. I want the people online to know that I'm not in this room by myself. As just that, once again, no one is sitting up here with me. Okay, as always, we'll start with the review and approval of the minutes of our May 18th, 2022 meeting. I invite a motion to adopt the minutes as provided. Please state your name and jurisdiction. Okay, I'll move to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Yeah, second. Second.
A second by Earl Lewis. Thank you.
Ms. Sabeski, we need to do the public comments.
Oh.
Which is part of item 1, and I think we keep forgetting to put that in your annotated agenda.
Yeah, so I
I'll
forget
fix
about
that next time.
Not a problem. Go right ahead.
All right, thank you, Chair Sabeski. Between the May 2022 TPB meeting and noon on Tuesday, June 14th, the TPB received one comment, which was submitted via email. A memo with a summary of the comment, as well as the comment itself, can be found on our TPB meeting page. Stuart Schwartz and Bill Pugh of the Coalition for Smarter Growth submitted a memo stating the following. TPB needs to make real commitments on climate on Wednesday in Visualize 2045, not debate or water down the COG 2030 climate plan greenhouse gas targets, which the TPB already endorsed 2 years ago. CSG, 47 other regional organizations, and hundreds of public comments have asked you to set these performance targets for meeting the COG 2030 greenhouse gas reductions, which are, 1, to achieve between 50 and 100% of light-duty vehicle sales to be electric vehicles by 2030, and 2, reduce per capita light-duty vehicle miles traveled by 15% to 20% by 2030 compared to the baseline forecast. And 3, put these performance targets and a strong on-road greenhouse gas reduction goal into Visualize 2045. Achieving our climate goals would also further transportation equity by giving lower-income households and workers more affordable transportation options, allowing them to drive less, enabling them to live closer to jobs and services, helping them own more efficient vehicles, cleaning the polluted air they breathe, and providing safer streets for pedestrians, transit users, and others. Many have asked you to adequately address climate change. Your top goal is to ensure that the transportation system keeps your communities safe. The time to act to prevent disastrous climate change is running out. As I mentioned, this comment is found on our meeting page. That concludes my report. Thank you, Chair Sabeski.
Thank you very much. Now, I will go back to the minutes, and there is a motion on the table by myself and then seconded by Mr. Lewis. I think that we can pick up where we left off, if that's okay with staff. Okay. So are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from anybody in the room? How about from anybody online?
No hands raised.
Okay. All right. Then for the vote then, are there any nays or abstentions from those in the room? And is there any nays and abstentions from online? Then I guess that motion is approved. Okay, now to the technical committee report. We have a written summary of the June 3rd meeting. I will recognize Matt Arcieri, the chair of the technical committee. Matt, is there anything you would like to highlight or expand on?
Matt should be online.
So actually, I don't see his name, which is fine. So if you don't mind, I will just run through it quickly.
That would be fine. Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thanks. So there were a couple of items that were reviewed for inclusion on the TPB's agenda. So items 7, 8, 9, actually all of them were. So we spent some time talking about the plan, the TIP, and then we spent some time talking about the transportation sector-specific greenhouse gas reduction goals and strategies under consideration, answered a bunch of questions and tried to get everybody to understand what was on the table. TPB Agenda Item 9, CMAQ Program Draft 2020 to 2025 targets. We presented them again, so that will be the second time they had seen it, and will be the second time you'll have seen it this week. And lastly, on the TPB agenda, the Regional Roadway Safety Program approval. So we rolled out the 4 projects that are being recommended for approval, and spent some time with the Tech Committee on that. There were a couple of items presented for information and discussion. TPB bylaws update, so you all will see this next month. We're going to look to update the bylaws to, correct isn't the right word, make sure that the virtual participation options are appropriate for the way the board wants to go. And just look at the other, just background on the, just update, bring the TPB bylaws to the 21st century is what I said, actually. Status update on the Continuous Airport Systems Planning Program. So staff was briefed on the committee on recent accomplishments and upcoming activities, including plans for our next exciting regional air passenger survey at our 3 commercial airports. Electric vehicles, pool resources for EV development. We spent quite a bit of time providing an update on efforts to form a coalition of local partners to coordinate development of a regional electric vehicle infrastructure deployment plan. Pennsylvania Avenue Initiative, Vision and Concepts. Our partners from the National Capital Planning Commission presented their projects on the draft concepts for Pennsylvania Avenue. And lastly, Draft 2022 Congestion Management Process Technical Report. This is one of our federal requirements, as you all have liked to hear me say over and over again. And so we spent some time on what that report looks like, and we're taking comments right now and expect the technical committee to accept it next month. That concludes my report. Thanks.
Fabulous. So are there any questions for Lynn from anybody in the room? Okay. How about from anybody online? Do they wish to be recognized? I don't see any hands up. Okay. So thank you, Lynn. Now we're going to move on to the Community Advisory Committee report. We have a written summary of the June 9th meeting. I will welcome for the first time in person Ms. Ashley Hudson, Chair of the CAC. Ashley, is there anything you would like to highlight from the CAC?
Yes. Yes. Hello, I'm Ashley Hudson. I'm with the Heavy Construction Contractors Association. I'm a resident of the City of Manassas and here today representing the Community Advisory Committee to the TPB. The Community Advisory Committee met for an online meeting last Thursday evening. At this meeting, Stacy Cook provided a presentation on the finalization of Visualize 2045. I think the CAC is as proud as the TPB staff to see the plan reach completion. Comments on the Visualize 2045 presentation included compliments on the equity emphasis areas. A member said the EEAs are an effective geographical way to look at equity as it relates to transportation. Another member expressed appreciation for the data in the plan, saying it's helpful to support the narrative and policies surrounding the plan. John Swanson briefed the committee on public engagement initiatives known as Voices of the Region and asked us to examine the effectiveness of the tools used for the survey, such as postcards, focus groups, and QR code posters. One member noted that education is a very important part of public involvement, saying the public should better understand how decisions about zoning development zoning or development that often appear completely local, how they can impact transportation demand across the broader geographic area. So that was a request for more education for the general public. Another member suggested planners should focus on needs-oriented public comments instead of project-specific public comments, because needs-based comments are typically unbiased concerns based on personal travel experience. CAC members agreed that the push to gather the concerns of road users should be stronger in the next go-round. While response rates were high, response rates from drivers and those in outer jurisdictions were lower. They suggested posting the QR code posters at gas stations, grocery stores, shopping malls, and places like that in the outer jurisdictions to increase involvement. There was also discussion about transit being too DC-centric. One member suggested creating bus routes that connect suburbs and business complexes with one another. Lastly, there was open discussion about the next CAC meeting, in which we will be joined by Chair Sebeski, Vice Chair Collins, and Vice Chair Henderson. Also, the rest of the TPB is welcome to attend our CAC meeting and chat with us as well. We look forward to their presentations and the opportunity as a group to form relationships with our TPB leaders. So this concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ashley. And yes, I look forward to meeting with the CAC, and I'm sure my co-chairs do as well. And I would strongly encourage all members of the TPB, it's a virtual meeting, to try to join our representatives on the CAC. One of the things that has been brought to my attention is that there are many members on the CAC that don't really connect much with the person that serves on this TPB board. And I think that does help. Ashley and I do communicate at least once a month so that she understands what's going on both at the city and with the TPB so that she can better represent on the CAC. And she actually has come before our full council and reported out what the CAC is discussing and doing. So I think building those relationships will be great benefit for everybody. So I thank the CAC for the report, lots of great ideas coming forward, just like asking to have the chair and vice chairs and all of TPB try to meet at least once with the members of the CAC to do that. So is there anyone here that has any questions for Ashley in the room? Anyone in the room? What about anybody online? Okay, with that, we're going to move along. Thank you again. Now to the report from our director, Conti. We have a written summary of the June 3rd Steering Committee meeting and a report on other items of interest. Conti, is there anything you would like to highlight and anything new to share with the board?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I recognize that we have a packed agenda today, and I will refer members to my written report, but will be glad to answer any questions. One item in the report I would draw your attention to, as has been mentioned by Ashley and the chair, the TPB's Community Advisory Committee is inviting all of the members of the board to attend a joint meeting with them on July 14th. The meeting is intended to allow for board members and the CAC members to meet and discuss the projects, the work activities, and their priorities. This will be a virtual meeting. We have 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Scheduled for the meeting. There will be breakout sessions during the virtual session. So the other item is thank you to many of the board members who participated in the May 20th Bike to Work Day. It was a good event. We had 12,700 participants, coming very close to pre-pandemic level. It's really great to see people out and about and coming back to walking and biking. Lastly, some bittersweet news to share. Your staff and our friend and colleague, John Sherman, will be retiring from COG in July. John has been with COG since 2014. He brought extensive national level experience in transportation safety and freight planning to the TPB. John has been absolutely critical in establishing and growing the freight planning and safety programs, including the creation of the TPB's Regional Roadway Safety Grant Program. John is scheduled to present to you later today. I know John is looking forward to a happy and fulfilling retirement, and for that, we wish him all the best. It's certainly been my personal privilege to have him as a colleague and a friend. So, thank you. And that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes. Please extend our congratulations on his retirement and appreciation for all the work that he has done for the many years he's been here.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Conti from anybody in the room? What about those online? I don't see anything. Okay. So the next comes to myself, and I will keep my remarks brief as well, as we do have a very full agenda today. But please note that all the items on today's agenda require the board's action. All actions that we take today are important. I realize that items 7 and 8 are sensitive and tied to federal requirements, meaning we must act on these today. Items 7 and 8 are also topics that we have been working on for the past 2 years, and I will say, especially with 2 work sessions in the last 2 months, have spent many hours allowing for members of this board to have time to discuss and bring concerns forward. And today, we will bring those to a conclusion. I respect everyone's time, and I will, as always, strive to stick to the schedule and not keep us beyond 2 p.m. today. I will keep a close eye on the time as we take up each item on the agenda, and at the outset of each item, I will summarize the outcome needed today to help us sharpen our comments. So I request everyone to please work with me to keep within the time that we have and to keep our comments during the discussions to that time frame. Like I said, we've had a lot of time over the last 2 months, and I really do appreciate the extensive conversation this board has had with these, especially these 2 items that we're bringing, these first 2 items up today. So with that, let's jump in. Now to the first major action for today. In fact, there are 3 elements within this 1 action item. We will have Stacy Cook on staff review the 3 elements, then I will take up each element of our action individually and in turn, as I had previously mentioned. I will briefly summarize each item. Stacy, will you please review the 3 elements of our action today, as you have done the last 2 meetings, I think.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Your staff would like to recognize the work that you've done over the last 2 years to develop this plan and for guidance as we develop the plan as your staff. Based on all the work that's been done, the staff are ready to recommend the 3 actions that accompany 3 resolutions that we have before you here today. So we could get the slide back up. There we go. So I'm going to just briefly review those, and then I will turn the microphone back to Chair Sebeski. So just in recognition of all of the work that's been done, it was more than 2 years ago that staff began gathering information in order to understand what kind of revenues were available to fund projects in the plan and begin the work necessary to demonstrate financial constraint. More than 2 years ago, staff were developing the survey that was conducted to gather information through our first Voices of the Region survey to inform you about what the public had to say about all sorts of topics before we brought the plan and the public and technical inputs to you for approval and consideration. In December of 2020, you approved the technical input solicitation document that initiated our call for projects. In spring of 2021, we brought those technical inputs to the public and opened them up for interagency review to make sure we would have a refined and accurate list to recommend for your approval. We collected comments and brought those to you at your May 2021 meeting to give you a month to consider those before recommending you take action to approve those inputs to the air quality conformity of the plan and technical input solicitation. So with those actions in June and July, you approved those. We conducted the air quality conformity analysis, produced a lot of materials related to the plan and the tips that were made available for public comment in April. We brought to those comments in May, and now here we are today. Our work as staff is complete and ongoing, of course, but we are prepared to recommend 3 actions. Let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry. I will go to the next slide. So these are the 3 resolutions that we'll be bringing to you. Our resolution R15, 2022 is the first action, which is to approve the update to Visualize 2045 and the 23 to 26 TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, essentially the first 4 years of the plan. The next resolution, and again, Chair Sebeski will walk through each of these as we ask you to take action, will be finding that the update to the Visualize 2045 and the 2023 to 2026 TIP do conform with the requirements of the Clean Air Amendments of 1990. And then the last resolution, R17, 2022, is to self-certify that the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board does indeed follow all the federal requirements of the Metropolitan Transportation Planning process. So these will be the 3, again, just to highlight R15, to approve the plan and the TIP. We, as your staff, certify that we do meet all of the federal requirements associated with the planning process for the plan and TIP, that we have conducted the air quality conformity analysis, and R16 documents that the findings demonstrate that we are in conformity with the federally required budgets that are set through MWAC. And then the last resolution, R17, 2022, to self-certify the planning process. And so that is my brief overview. I will conclude my comments here and return it to you, Ms. Sabetsky.
Thank you, Stacy. So we will start with Resolution R15, 2022, approving the updates to Visualize 2045 and adopting a new TIP. What we will be doing today is formally adopting all the updates to our long-range transportation plan, Visualize 2045, that we approved last year, as well as the funding for various projects listed in the new TIP. Members will recall that last year in June and July, we, as a board, approved the projects, programs, and policies that would be included in this updated plan. Included in the update are comprehensive updates to the finances of our long-range transportation plan, changes to the scope and schedule of projects that were in the previous plan, and a few new projects. This federally required update has to be first adopted by us and then submitted for federal review and approval by the FHWA, the FTA, the EPA, and perhaps other agencies. All of this has to be completed by the end of this year. If we do not adopt the flow of federal funds for all the transportation projects and programs, we'll be adversely impacted. So we must act on this today. Last month, staff briefed us on all the comments received during the public review period and the responses our transportation agency staff and from the TPB staff. While we discussed all the updates, the board had extensive discussions on the Maryland's Hot Lanes project, or Opportunity Lanes project as MDOT refers to it, as part of our action approving the project for inclusion in this plan update last year. MDOT made certain commitments to support transit and TDM projects proposed by Maryland localities. MDOT was also to provide us with an update on the status of project development and negotiations. We have received a written update from MDOT in a letter that was included in our read-ahead packet last week. Before I call for the formal motion to approve the updated long-range plan and adopt the new TIP, I will ask MDOT to provide an overview of their commitments and the progress to date on them. Then, during discussion on the motion, I will work to provide all members equal time to provide any comments they may have on the overall action before calling for a vote. Remember, we have 3 resolutions to adopt under this item, and we are beginning with just this first resolution of R15, 2022. Earl Lewis of MDOT, would you please review the commitments MDOT has made and provide an overview of where MDOT is on these as of today? Please try to keep your remarks brief to less than 5 minutes.
Will do. Thank you, Chair Sabetsky, for the time to summarize our letter. As you all recall from the resolution we approved last July, MDOT committed to provide an update to this board on the transit investments that will be part of Op Lanes, Maryland. The letter included in the meeting materials restates those transit commitments that we coordinated with Montgomery County on and made to this board last year. These include $60 million funded for the development rights fees for designing and permitting Montgomery County's high priority transit project, which we now know to be Maryland 355 BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, as well as the $300 million in transit investments from toll revenues over the operating term of Phase 1 South. In addition, MDOT remains committed to provide mitigation as part of Phase 1 South, including increasing the number of Shady Grove Metro Rail Station bus bays, expanding Westfield Montgomery Mall Transit Center's parking capacity, and constructing and equipping the Metropolitan Grove Operations and Maintenance Facility, including the necessary bus fleet. The final environmental impact statement is expected to be published at the end of the week in the Federal Register, published in our newsletter and forwarded to the TPB staff as well. These commitments will be included in that document. All funding and future agreements are contingent upon a record of decision, or ROD, which we expect later this summer, as well as reaching financial close. Since the NEPA process began back in 2018, MDOT has updated the TPB on public forum announcements, key document releases, and actions taken at the Maryland Board of Public Works. And as we move forward, we will continue to update you all as this project continues to advance. Thank you again, and with that, I'll move approval of TPB R15, 2022.
Second. Great, thanks, Earl. Before I open the floor for discussion, let me see if there's the second, which we already have. Now for the discussion on the motion, I will have staff assist me in calling up members to comment. I will ask to start with the Maryland and then Virginia and then the district and other agencies. I request members to keep your comments brief, as we have had much discussion on this already, so that we can get through everything on the agenda today. So,
okay. We'll start with feedback and comments on the resolution made, starting with Maryland, Montgomery County.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lewis, for your comments. Obviously, the commitments to improving transit in concert with the traffic relief plan are of utmost importance to Montgomery County. We initiated work with MDOT back in May of 2020 on reaching some agreement in these matters, and that is not concluded as of this date, and it appears to us that work on these items, at least the engagement with Montgomery County on these items, has stopped in around January of this year. So there may be other issues that have resulted in that delay. We look forward to continuing to work with MDOT to advance these projects, but I'm proposing an amendment to this resolution that would make sure that the record of decision for this project reflects TPB's actions to require these transit investments, and that MDOT report to this body on status of reaching agreement on all of those items on a bi-monthly basis until the agreements are finalized with Montgomery County. Now, of course, we recognize that any action based on those agreements would require MDOT to be able to move forward with the project as they've envisioned to date. So I offer that amendment to the resolution today. I think staff has the specific language that we're recommending, but I characterized what it is we would like to see in the resolution. I believe it's friendly to the resolution.
Okay, Mr. Chair, staff is working to bring up the resolution that was mailed with the additional text that Montgomery County has provided. So a motion has been made and seconded. There's an amendment proposed to the resolution. So perhaps it is up to the maker of the motion to indicate whether they will accept this as a friendly amendment.
So let's start with Mr. Lewis. Do you recognize this amendment as a friendly amendment or not?
Give me a moment just to read it.
Not a problem, sir. Let us know when you're ready.
So the proposed amendment is being displayed on the screen. And from what I could tell, it is asking the TPB as the MPO to notify the US DOT that the project has been included in the long-range plan with commitments from MDOT for additional projects to go along with it. That is information sharing from the TPB to the federal agencies such as the Federal Highway. That is something from a staff perspective is doable should the TPB approve the Visualized 2045 plan with the inclusion of the managed lanes project.
Okay, so this is accepted as a friendly amendment. The only caveat is, I just want to state for the record that adding the bi-monthly reporting is redundant and probably unnecessary. We've already been consistently working with and updating the TPB throughout the entire NEPA process over the last 4 years. We've always happily cooperated with the board requests for updates and information, and we'll continue to do so. So we just want to make sure, obviously, we're committed to working cooperatively with you. We don't see it necessary to have this language in, but it's still taken as a friendly amendment.
Thank you for that acknowledgement.
And the seconder accepts that as well. Great. So resolution R15-2022 has been moved and seconded and has been amended and agreed by the maker and the seconder to being a friendly amendment. Everyone can see this amendment on the screen. I will direct staff to continue with the comments from members before we proceed towards a vote.
Okay, so we have just finished Montgomery County. Just looking at the people here in the room, Prince George's County. Any comments on?
None to this amendment, and if it is considered friendly, then we're supportive.
Thank you. Tacoma Park, Casey Gostick.
Thank you. Not on this, but the larger discussion. Is that correct?
Yes. This has been accepted as a friendly amendment to the resolution, so this is the updated resolution that we are now holding discussions on and seeking input from the members.
Great, thank you. I would like to propose two amendments that I also think are friendly, referencing the item that we are doing after this, item 8, the action on climate. And so I have sent those, I apologize, just sent them a couple of minutes ago to Lynn. The first would build on the reference that is already in the resolution to the other of these resolutions that's being adopted and would...
One second, Casey, are you asking for another amendment to this one?
Yes, not to the amendment, but to the resolution.
You're asking to amend another amendment to this resolution, and it was not given out prior to today, so no one here today has had the benefit of looking at that amendment. Okay.
I do apologize. I had not seen the amendment we just saw here either.
No, they did not either, but this created a lot of confusion last year to the members of this board, and and we have discussed this a lot over the last year, and especially had work sessions the last 2 years. I actually had a private conversation with Montgomery County about that. So certainly let's hear and see them, and I will see where everyone wants to go, but that's just my concern, is that the last minute things coming forward does not allow the members voting here the opportunity to discuss this with the rest of the people that they represent. So please continue.
And I very much appreciate that. My intent here is not to do anything groundbreaking, but simply to reference the resolution that we will be adopting in whatever form that is after this. So the first whereas here simply notes that we are adopting that, and I think it's important to have that be a part of our resolution on the long-range plan, as well as our action on the climate resolution as well. And then the second one just simply calls for an update to the language in the actual plan, which currently notes that the TPB is discussing these items, and after our action, we will have adopted those. So open to different wording if people have that. Like I said, not trying to do anything groundbreaking, but I do think it is important that we have, for the record, our action on the climate items noted here.
So for those virtually, the proposed additions of two whereas clauses are now currently being displayed on the screen. The first one is referring to an action that the board has not yet taken. So I wonder if that language could be modified a little bit, because this resolution is being adopted before the next agenda item. But it is essentially saying that TPB has passed the resolution which it will be debating or discussing next. The second whereas clause is acknowledging that whatever the climate change mitigation goals and strategies that will be adopted will be added to the Visualize 2045 plan document, so that the climate change, the focus on climate change, becomes part of the official policy element of the TPB. That seems to be the intent. So from a staff perspective, these two, adding these would not necessarily cause any change to the conformity analysis, financial analysis, or any of that, apart from the language in the first whereas presumes the outcome of the next agenda item.
Do we know if there's any legal standpoint to that one, whether or not there's a legal perspective on something being put in before there's been another vote taken?
So just as a note, I don't know if it's different because they're different items, but the resolution does already include similar language regarding, I think it's R17 or R16. It's the second to last whereas clause in the resolution already. So that was what this was based on, but we could
say, whereas on June 15, upon the TPB adopting resolution R18 might address what's coming.
Or pursuant to adoption, yes. The reason I asked about the legal aspect is I don't want to do anything that we find out later and then have to come back and do this again.
Would it make sense to go to the next resolution first and come back to this one?
think the Visualize 2045 plan adoption, TIP adoption, conformity, and self-certification are part of the federally required MPO activities that are on a time frame. So I think procedurally it would be okay to do that. If this language is acceptable, none of my comments is trying to indicate that there's any doubt on the next agenda items action, but just trying to. Okay.
Yeah, this is good for me, if it's all right with others.
So we'll turn back to the maker of the motion if they would accept this as friendly.
I think I just need to be clear from the maker of the motion, just to be sure that I understand and everybody here understands what is the purpose of adding this language to this resolution. I don't want to assume anything, just to make it clear.
Thank you. In my opinion, it's just important that we recognize our work on the climate goals. We've had a lot of discussion on that as it relates to this plan and our future work on long-range plans. So obviously this work is not necessarily informing the long work that we've done up to now for several years in terms of adopting this plan, but I do think, especially with the second clause here, it more accurately acknowledges where we are in that process and points us forward for our next revision of the long-range plan.
So the only issue I have is the last sentence. This section will be updated to reflect TPB's action on June 15th, 2022. Again, not knowing what those actions are, that impacts what would be updated in this section, and it just seems unusual and maybe a little bit uncertain what those updates would be. We'd have to come back to this again, and then we'd have to argue over that again. And I'm not sure whether that's that would be constructive. I understand the sentence before that, but short of this last sentence, I could take it as a friendly amendment. But that last sentence really makes it really uncertain what we're doing.
Good case.
I think the modified first whereas clause actually references what will happen to the second one. So I would be okay actually with taking out that second whereas since it will be appended as is to the long range plan if that would be acceptable in resolving your concern.
So now what's on the table as a friendly amendment is just the one, and I will go back to the maker of the motion to see if you accept that as a friendly amendment.
Yeah, because now I interpret this as just adding language based on our decisions later today to the update of Visualize 2045.
So yes.
Yes.
Second? Yes. Second, okay. So both of these amendments have now been added. Please go forward, Lynn, so I make sure I'm not missing something.
No, Neil Harris has his hand up.
Oh.
Which came up in the middle. Anyway, he's online.
Sorry, it may be.
We haven't gotten into any discussion yet, though, have we?
We are continuing now. As part of the discussion, Tacoma Park offered an amendment that was accepted as friendly. So we continue with discussions, starting with Maryland, and now it is City of Gaithersburg.
Okay, then if that's Mr. Harris, please go forward.
Well, I actually was uncomfortable with the amendment, so it's probably too late. I think that the work we're doing on air quality conformity is obviously very critical, but I'm just uncomfortable with the fact that we're about to, vote on a resolution that accepts something that we haven't voted on yet. And if there's some modification to agenda item 8 that people are uncomfortable with, we're already completely committed at this point. So I don't know what can be done at this juncture. So I just wanted to make sure I put that on the table.
Thank you. And again, I guess I'll go back to staff. I'm assuming that because this just came to us, I'm assuming legal has not had a chance to look at this to make sure that it is not a problem for us to vote on something to include something that we have not yet voted on.
Right. No, we have not had time to run it by the legal review, but once again, going by the wording that as modified and addressing the comments just made by Mr. Harris. The current language appears to indicate it's not making any presumptions on what the outcome would be, rather simply saying whatever it is will be added to the Visualize 2045 plan document so that that becomes that the TPB's action and intent on this topic is captured in the official plan document. So from that perspective, given that there is no commitment or presumption of what exactly will be added, staff would see this as something that is doable if that is the will of the board.
Okay, thank you. I guess continue with the discussion.
City of Rockville?
Thank you. The City of Rockville supports the amendments, both of them. We still stand unanimously opposed to the up lanes, B3, whatever the title is today and tomorrow. Just want that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The House of Delegates, Maryland House of Delegates, Mr. Corman was.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I did just want to briefly say why I think the earlier amendment we adopted is so important as long as we're talking about general discussion, which is that although I have a great affinity for Assistant Secretary Lewis, MDOT has a history in our state of making very grandiose promises that they then walk back, including on the Harry Nice Bridge, recently with our BWI airport and labor peace language related to our airport concessionaire agreement. And of course, recently in the news, the project labor agreement related to the Purple Line. So I think adding additional language as we've done, and I appreciate the department taking it as a friendly amendment, is really important. But I did just want to say that for the record, because Secretary Lewis talked about the great cooperation they provided, and we appreciate that. But they also have an unfortunate record when it comes to a lot of these promises. So thanks for the opportunity, and look forward to voting in favor of the resolution.
Okay, thank you. City of Bowie, any comments?
We are in favor.
Okay, thanks. Charles County, Vice Chair, Mr. Collins.
We are in favor and moving forward.
Thank you. College Park, Mr. Moya. Okay, so we'll come back. Frederick County, Ms. Gardner.
I'm happy to support the two amendments as they're friendly amendments, and I do think the First Amendment will be beneficial to Frederick County as well as Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, this is Patrick Ryan from College Park. If you can hear me. Sorry, I had to get unmuted. I do appreciate the amendments offered and accepted as friendly, and will support.
Thank you. From the City of Frederick, Ms. Russell.
City of Frederick is supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. City of Greenbelt, Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, the City of Greenbelt, we're supportive of the resolution as amended, and for the record, we stand in opposition to the managed lane or opportunity lane proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. City of Laurel, Mr. Lee.
City of Laurel is supportive.
Excellent. Thank you. I think I see Mr. Lewis from MDOT's hand raised, so.
Yes, I just want to make sure. I think, Chris, when you made your comments, you may have made, the resolution is what we support as friendly, and that is a formal statement in conclusion of the public docket of the feast, okay? I think you might have said Rod, but the feast is fine. I just want to make sure that's corrected. So if media is listening.
Yes, the language that is written is the language we're proposing.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was all of the members from state of Maryland. We could go down the list, or you can open up for the next Virginia District of Columbia. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Franklin. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Glad to welcome you to the board. Okay.
So now that we have finished Maryland, why don't we just open it up for anyone in the room from DC? Would they have any comments? And if not, then we'll go online if there's anyone from DC, and then we'll go to Virginia. And I don't see anything. Do you see anything? Okay. Then let's go to Virginia and those in the room. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a comment? Go ahead, Takis.
Thank you, Chair Sabetsky. On behalf of Harlingen County, we will be supportive of the proposed resolution and the amendment. I think it is kind of unusual technically to add the second amendment, but it's not impossible. And since the outcomes are open here, I think it's technically acceptable to do that. And it also provides a good frame with regards to the greenhouse gas reduction goals, whatever the outcome may be later, that it's appropriate to include in the resolution that goes with Visualize 2045.
Great, thank you. Anyone else from Virginia in the room want to speak?
Chair, Mr. Snyder.
Mr. Snyder, I'm so sorry. Clearly, I'm not seeing people today.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just two quick comments. I would support the First Amendment under the assumption that it won't delay the approval or any of the projects in the plan, and the nodding is that it will not do so. And secondly, I support the second because it makes clear the linkage between the greenhouse gas issues and the long-range plan. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else in Virginia in the room? Okay. How about online? No.
Except there's a chat from WMATA.
Okay, now we're going to go to other agencies, so let's start with WMATA.
Okay. Allison?
I was just asking a question to make sure that we were voting. I was hearing a lot of approvals, and so I wanted to make sure that it was about both the amendments which were proposed, which we support, and then the resolution as all. Just wanted to make sure everyone was clear on that.
Right. So we are voting on the resolution as amended. It's on the entire resolution, since both additions were accepted as friendly. So that concludes comments that we have received during discussion. So it's back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to just ask for nays and abstentions, and if it seems like there's a problem, we'll go from there. Okay, so starting with those in the room, are there any nays or abstentions to this?
Nay. Nay.
Okay.
Okay, what about online? Is there any nays or abstentions from Maryland?
So what I'd like to do is just, that was Casey Kostick and Bridget Newton that said nays, just for the purpose of the record. And
thank you.
Online, I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay, well, I'll give them a chance and ask anyone from Maryland that is online have any nays or abstentions. What about from the District of Columbia? Virginia? WMATA and other agencies? Okay, so that motion passes for resolution RS-15, 2022. Thank you all for this important action that we just took. Let's move on to the second of the three elements under this one, Resolution R-16, 2022, approving the regional air quality conformity analysis that shows that the emissions from our plan and TIP remain below the EPA approved levels of ozone emissions. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution R-16, 2022? Okay, I'll make the motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second that.
That's from Amir from VDOT, right? Okay. For the discussion on this motion, are there any questions or comments from those in the room? What about online? Okay. For the vote, then perhaps we do not need to do a roll call vote. We'll just ask for nays and abstentions from those in the room.
Abstain.
Casey Kostick is abstained. Okay. What about from those online? Are there any nays or abstentions from Maryland, DC, Virginia, WMATA, or other agencies? Okay. That motion passes. Now, For the third and last element of action under this agenda item, endorsing the certification from the 3 Department of Transportations that the TPB has followed federal regulations in its work on the plan and TIP. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution R17, 2022?
So moved.
Thank you. The motion has been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion from anyone in the room? Yes, please, Mr. Snyder, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just for the record, staff is recommending this action. I note that there are a lot of federal requirements here: safety, environmental, congestion reduction, environmental justice, et cetera. There are quite a lot of requirements. So I just wanted on the record that staff has carefully reviewed this, and maybe in the future we could have some examples of specific ways we're complying with the federal legislation. But may I assume that staff has gone through the process and is recommending that we engage in this self-certification?
A really good question. We have been, for the past 18 months, every month before the board meets, we've been meeting with the 3 DOTs who are specifically charged by the feds to oversee all of the process and procedures TPB follows. So we've been working with them over the past 18 months, informing them what we are doing, how we are doing. And this certification is the 3 DOTs asserting and attesting that we have followed the federal procedures. Also importantly, later this year, we are expecting to be audited by Federal Highway and the FTA and other federal agencies. This happens once every 4 years. So we have been particularly careful that we're doing everything by the book. So thank you, Mr. Senator. I'm glad you asked that.
That was a very good question. Are there any other questions from anyone in the room? What about from anybody online? Okay. So I'm going to ask for nays and abstentions again. We'll start with those in the room. Are there any nays or abstentions in the room?
Abstain.
Casey Kostick, please acknowledge as abstained. What about anybody online? Any nays or abstentions? Okay. Then it looks like the resolution R17, 2022 passes, and we can move on to the next item. Thank you, Ms. Cook. Now to the second of the 4 action items that we have today. Like the previous item, we have been working on this for almost 2 years. We have made many discussions about this, including 2 work sessions in the last 2 months where the members of this board have spent much time and much discussion. It is now time for us to see if we can conclude this phase of our work on mitigating the adverse impacts of climate change within the transportation sector. Of course, we will continue to work on this topic, but today's action would be formally adding climate change mitigation consideration and transportation decision-making to the TPB's long-range transportation planning policy element. 4 years ago, when we adopted the long-range transportation plan, we added aspirational initiatives to our policy element after having worked on it a couple of years. Similarly now, after having worked on climate change mitigation, we would be able to add this to the TPB's policy element. What this would mean is that the updated visualized 2045 plan document that staff is developing to submit to the federal agencies and release to the public will include these goals and strategies we adopt today. And importantly, our action today would mean all of us agree that moving forward, we will more explicitly consider how the transportation projects we approve locally and programs we decide to fund and implement would help reduce greenhouse gas emissions within the regional transportation sector. I said moving forward because it is not like every jurisdiction can take all of these actions needed to meet our goals in 1 year and then be done. Every one of us will have to have our full boards take the actions we can within our abilities and applicability of the strategy to our jurisdiction. Every year and every time we make a decision on what transportation projects to invest on, this needs to be part of our consideration and conversation. We will all have to keep at it for a long time, since as a region, we have established very ambitious goals to reduce greenhouse gases from all sectors, and the transportation sector will have to do its part as well. Charles Allen last month gave us a great example of how we can visualize our future actions on this topic. Charles noted how the TPB in 2018 developed the idea of equity emphasis areas and mapped these areas in our region. The COG board then adopted this as part of their regional planning framework, and now the jurisdictions in the region have become using these equity emphasis areas in local decision-making, passing regulations to consider equity impacts on all projects and programs, and other organizations are using this in making funding decisions. Similarly, the greenhouse gas reduction goals and strategies we adopt today can be visualized as being used by our member agencies in making transportation decisions at local levels or sub-regional levels and state levels. We all must work together to make an impact. While not everyone can do everything, there is something for everyone to do, and we should commit to doing our part. I will ask Conti to set the stage for what is in front of us for consideration, and then we will move for motion. Conti, do you want to refresh us all on what each of these goals will require from the jurisdictions to be considering in their decision-making before we go forward?
Certainly, Madam Chair, thank you. I'll be brief, and I will review the three documents that was included in the read-ahead packet that was mailed last week. There is a resolution R18, and there were two memorandums from the staff. So first, reviewing the resolution R18, the resolution has several whereas clauses that summarizes the work of the TPB and COG related to climate change, work that has been going on since at least 2008. And there are references to various studies, including the TPB's most recent 2021 climate change mitigation study, as well as the COG's most recent climate and energy action plan, which lays out a plan for how the region can work together collectively to achieve its greenhouse gas reduction goals. The resolution concludes with a proposal that the TPB resolves to voluntarily adopt greenhouse gas reduction goals specifically for the on-road transportation sector, and the goals would be at the level of 32% reduction in greenhouse gases from the 2005 levels by 2030, and 80% reduction from 2005 levels by 2050. The resolution also resolves that the TPB would adopt as transportation planning priorities 7 specific strategies which are listed in Table 1, all of which would help reduce greenhouse gases in the on-road sector. And the resolution ends by the TPB identifying 7 additional strategies which are listed in Table 2 as having the potential to further reduce greenhouse gas reductions in the on-road sector, yet they require a more detailed exploration and discussions with several other entities in addition to TPB to address implementation issues associated with these strategies. Next, I'll review very briefly the 2 memorandums. The first memorandum under item 8A is a memo from me to the board. It's dated June 9th. This memo provides the background information related to the resolution. On page 1, the memo provides the context for today's action on climate change as relates to federal requirements for the TPB. The federal requirement, as the previous action has just indicated, it is to develop a financially constrained long-range transportation plan, which has to be updated every 4 years. And the emissions from the projects, programs, and policies in the plan has to conform to federal limits for ozone emissions. All of this has been done, and the TPB has just taken that action. Next, the memo recognizes that even though there are no federal or state mandates for MPOs such as the TPB to include climate change or greenhouse gas emissions as part of the TPB's long-range transportation plan, the TPB has indeed been doing exactly that since 2010. And the plan that the TPB just adopted is projected to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 18% below 2005 levels, even while accommodating a little north of 20% growth in employment and population in the region. The memo also on pages 2 and 3 speaks about the greenhouse gas reduction goals that have already been adopted by the region and by many members of the TPB. COG, on behalf of the region, adopted greenhouse gas reduction goals, regional greenhouse gas reduction goals, which are 50% below 2005 levels by 2030 and 80% below 2005 levels by 2050. The difference is these goals are multi-sectoral goals. There are many sectors in our economy that contribute to greenhouse gases, transportation being one of them. COG has not established greenhouse gas reduction goals for any of those individual sectors. That said, what the TPB is considering is to voluntarily adopt greenhouse gas reduction goals just for the on-road transportation sector, with the intent that the transportation sector will stay focused and will strive to doing its part, as you just said, Madam Chair, in reducing greenhouse gas reductions within that sector so that the region collectively can achieve the multi-sectoral greenhouse gas reduction goals. The resolution proposes a goal of 32% below 2005 levels for 2030, and that level of goal is to be adopted for the transportation sector for 2030. For the 2050, the goal would be 80% below 2005 levels. The memo then on page 3 talks about how attaining the proposed 32% reduction by 2030 would require the region to consider a number of actions. All of these actions are listed in table 1. About half of those actions, TPB members have indicated that they could begin implementing them right away. But another half of those strategies have substantive issues about how to implement them, what legislative actions would be needed to implement them. Those discussions are yet to be had. Lastly, the second memo in the read-ahead packet under item 8B, it's also from me and dated June 9th. This memo is essentially staff following up on some questions and comments and a request for information that staff received after the TPB work sessions and meeting last month. There was a question on the greenhouse gas reduction goals that the TPB could adopt if these goals were at a regional level or was it at a locality specific level. The staff response, as noted in the memo, is similar to the COG's regional greenhouse gas reduction goals. These goals would be at a regional level. On the question of how would the different levels, there are 3 different levels of greenhouse gas reduction goals under consideration. The question was asked, how would the different levels of greenhouse gas reduction goals for on-road sector that is being considered by TPB, how does it compare to the regional goal of 50% reduction by 2030? So a goal of 50% reduction by 2030 within the on-road sector would far exceed the assumed contribution from the on-road sector for the region to attain its 50% reduction from all sectors. A goal of 32% reduction by 2030 within the transportation sector would match the expectations for on-road transportation sector reductions for the region to achieve its multi-sectoral goal by 2030. A goal at 23% or anything less than 32% within the on-road sector would be less than what is assumed to be the contribution from the on-road transportation sector for the region to attain its multi-sectoral goal by 2030. Finally, we were asked, how do these goals compare with those of California? California is often seen as having the most stringent goals. There is a state law in California requiring the MPOs such as like the TPB to adopt specific goals and targets. We looked at that. The greenhouse gas reduction goals that are applicable to California are not comparable to what the TPB is considering in a couple of different aspects. California goals are for reducing vehicle miles traveled by light-duty vehicles only. That is not what TPB is considering. TPB is considering VMT reductions from all vehicles for all trip purposes. Secondly, the California greenhouse gas reduction goals are per capita. TPB is not considering per capita VMT reductions by light-duty vehicles. Yet, we secured our consultants' help to give us a sense of the three levels of greenhouse gas reduction goals TPB is considering. Can we identify what would be the level of VMT reductions within the light-duty vehicles only that would correspond to each of these three levels? So here is what our analysis indicates. For a goal of 50% reduction of greenhouse gases by 2030, this region's vehicle miles traveled per capita by light-duty vehicles will have to be reduced by 53 to 57%.
Hello?
Remember, this level of reduction was not attained even at the height of COVID lockdown in 2020.
Yeah.
A goal of 32% reduction by 2030 would require the light-duty vehicle per capita VMT to be reduced anywhere between 20 to 26%. So it's worth noting, California initially had a target of 19% reduction in VMT. Data showed that they were not achieving it. They went back to the drawing board and adopted a 12% reduction as their target. And the latest data shows that they are not attaining that. Instead, the VMT in California currently is higher than the 2005 level. Finally, if a goal of 23% reduction by 2030 is adopted, the light-duty vehicles per capita VMT in our region would have to be reduced between 3 and 10%. That is in the ballpark of what California currently is pursuing. That's a quick update on some questions that we were asked. So I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm sure there's going to be more questions. So I will start with entertaining a motion to adopt R18 2022.
Madam Chair, moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Dave Snyder. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Casey Kostick. So now that we have a motion and a second, we can open this up for discussion. I'll start with those in the room. Is there someone in the room that would like to start the discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I very much appreciate the sound technical work that TPB staff and consultants have done on this topic. It's very informative and really helps to highlight the challenge that we're facing in this sector. I'd like to note that as Montgomery County, we have no evidence that achieving the reductions in other sectors will be any easier than achieving the reductions in transportation, and do not feel that we should give the transportation sector any leeway with the regional goal that's been established for all sectors. So I'd like to move to amend the resolution to change the 2030 goal from the 32% below 2005 levels to 50% below 2005 levels, which is consistent with the overall regional goal. And we believe that we need to achieve this level of goal in order to achieve the level of outcome that might be consistent with the 32% that's referenced in this analysis, because certainly not every strategy will yield all of the results that we expect it to. So thank you for your consideration of that.
I'm going to go ahead and second it, and then, okay. So the maker of the motion, do you accept this as a friendly amendment?
No.
And a second? You would. So what do we do in a split?
I think the maker of the motion has the prerogative to rule. So.
Okay. So, but what we will need to do, and correct me if I'm not correct on this, we've had much discussion over the last several months about these goals. So we will have be having more discussion. But before we go to any vote, which is what, if I understand correctly, we will have to vote on the 50% option that's being put before us before we go back to the 32%. But before we do any of that, I would like to ask Conti to more concisely put before this board what people are committing to with each of the choices that are going to be before us, the 50%, the 32%, and the 23%, so that everyone is very clear on what is being, what they're voting on and what it means. So let's turn it over to you for right now, Conti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You've given me a challenging task of being brief and concise. I'll try my best. So there are three goals that the TPB has been considering over the past year plus. And the TPB's climate change mitigation study tried to identify and develop a plan of how can we get there. That is what I'm calling as, is there a pathway to attaining these goals? So this slide shows if the goal is set at 50% reduction by 2030, which is about 7 years away, do we have a plan? The answer from the TPB's analysis is no. The study looked at 14 different strategies. If you implemented all of them and they all provided the reductions that our technical analysis indicates, we would still fall short. So these are the 14 strategies that we have studied. What you see on the left of the screen are the strategies that TPB members have said they're ready to implement them now. The strategies on the right of the screen are strategies that the TPB members have said we are interested in exploring this. They have the potential to reduce greenhouse gases, but we are not sure how exactly all the implementation issues will be handled. So that is the pathway for 50%. There's no pathway identified. The next slide. The second level of goal, which is what is proposed in the resolution, is a 32% below 2030. The TPB's study.
Excuse me, Conti, do we have another slide?
This is.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It looks similar, but the text is different. The 32% reduction by 2030, the TPB study did identify a pathway. Yes, there is a way to get there, not to say that they are all going to be easy and immediately implementable, but here are the 14 strategies. Some of them we can begin to act right away. Some of them will require additional comprehensive discussions, but there is a way to get there. The third one, next slide please, is a 23% reduction. This, again, the TPB study said, yeah, we can definitely get there. We can get to 23% with just the 7 strategies that are ready to be implemented right now. These additional 7 strategies that we still need to discuss, those could be added and we might exceed 23%, but as of now, we can certainly reach 23%. So that's what I would call as the 3 pathways and what the TPB study has said. So I've tried to summarize it and be brief. Take it back.
Thank you. I just thought the visual would be important for people to be able to not just hear, but see what these 3 different numbers mean when it comes to your choice today when you're voting. So what we'll need to do first is vote on whether or not we're going to allow the amendment of the 50% or not, and then we can go back to discussion on the 32%, which was the original motion. So I believe...
Madam Chair, could I just ask a question just for kind of clarification? When we're looking at this resolution, these are just aspirational goals and aspirational strategies, because I'm trying to understand how I reconcile this with Virginia's Clean Economy Act, which has its own set of goals and strategies. And so I'm trying to understand if these are just aspirational or if we're asking to hold each one of the localities accountable to these.
Conti, I'll let you answer that.
Thank you. Good question. Thank you for the question. These are aspirational goals. These are goals to inform on the TPB's collective decision-making on transportation. As was noted by Mr. Snyder earlier, should the TPB adopt any of these goals and strategies, the TPB would be amending its policy element of the long-range transportation plan. The policy element currently has other goals. There are goals about congestion, there are goals on roadway safety, and there are goals on freight movement. So the TPB policy element does not yet have explicit goals on climate change and greenhouse gas reductions. So they would all be aspirational goals, yet expected to inform the projects and programs that would be added into the long-range plan. So it's not binding, but certainly informative for decision-making.
Okay, sure. Okay, so I'm going to do a roll call vote just to make it easiest on staff when it comes to start this. So what you're going to be voting on is whether or not you accept the amendment of changing the resolution to 50%. That is what you're voting on. Is that correct, Conti?
Yes, that's the vote. I just noticed Mr. Allen has raised his hand virtually. So I don't know if he added something.
Well, I was going to say, my understanding was we were going to vote and that the discussion would go back if this motion were to fail.
That's right. Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Okay, if I let Victor talk, I guess I'm going to have to, okay, first let's see if what Charles Allen wants to say. I guess we'll just do, we'll try to keep it as brief as we can.
Madam Chair, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure I was trying to make sure I tracked and understood where we were. First off, which I think I now follow, which is that the motion that you're about to call a vote on is about accepting the 50% threshold versus the 32% threshold. Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Then I will just very briefly, since we're just in the very brief discussion phase on that, I would say, as we think we heard Conti say, it is aspirational. There is no penalty for not reaching this, but it is aspirational. And I think given the urgency, as well as I think the overall COG goals to have a 50% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, I think it'd be consistent to have this be pegged at the 50%. It's aspirational. We all full well know across the region we're going to hit different parts of this target. But I think that the 50% is a good thing to aim for. It's aspirational, and I think it helps set the bar for us. So I'll be supporting that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, please go ahead, Mr. Angry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to go back. The original maker of the motion of 32%, Mr. Snyder, had a friendly amendment that he did not accept. So
right, because he said no, Robert's Rules of Order says we have to vote on the 50%. If that gets voted down, then we can go back to discussion on the 32%. And if someone wishes to bring up another amendment at that point, then we can discuss that at that time. That's the procedure that we'll be talking about here. Okay? And I will say, just because of Mr. Allen's comments, that I don't disagree that no matter which of these numbers that are chosen today, all of our jurisdictions are going to end up falling in different levels based on what each jurisdiction is able to do. But I do have concerns on credibility when we're picking things that we know from the beginning are not in any way achievable. So.
Just on the discussion part of this motion, I have a high respect on aspirational when it comes to deal with climate change. It is clear that any goal that we set right now has to be aspirational to a certain degree, because we don't always know how the path looks in front of us, and because all of us also politically we cannot assess how difficult it will be politically to push through certain things. Therefore, we have to be very, very careful about the feasibility of aspirational here. I mean, when I go back to my board colleagues and to the constituents of Arlington County, I will have to tell them, look, this decision here with which we agree, because we're part of this region, means this and that and the other in terms of investment in our transportation plan, changes, our 10-year capital improvement program, et cetera, et cetera. So aspirational is a serious business here. It's not just a wish list. Okay.
Okay. Can we, okay, if you could just keep it brief so we could vote on this, because we still have to go back and discuss the 32% if this doesn't pass.
Understood. and understood, and thank you, Madam Chair. But you know, did want to speak to the 50%, and agree with Councilmember Allen and others who noted that this is aspirational, and I would liken it to Vision Zero on traffic safety. And you know, you have to set ambitious goals in order to really move the dime. And while we fully support what's in the resolution for 32%, we think we need to push even a little harder, and in particular on the issue of bringing housing and jobs closer together. That's just a critical element, and I want to make sure that we really focus our attention on that in addition to the elements that are in the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Can you go ahead and call the roll, please?
There are two hands up online, Neil Harris and Senator Marston.
Okay, I'm willing to let them speak, but they need to be less than a minute because we need to be able to move on. We still have more things on the agenda. And like I said, if this were to fail, we still have to talk about 32% and anything else anybody else brings up. So, please.
I have my hand up as well.
Okay, so go ahead,
Ms. Newton.
Ms. Newton, and then I guess we'll go with the people online.
Mayor Newton speaks in favor of the 50% on behalf of the City of Rockville. As Chair Slabowski, you said at our last meeting, it is up to each individual jurisdiction to do what is best. And I think as a former chair of this august body, I believe I will second what Mr. Weisberg said. We need to be setting the bar. We need to be as aspirational as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil Harris?
So I hate to be a curmudgeon, but it's management science has shown that setting goals that are unachievable leads the effort down the wrong path because people don't take it seriously. I believe that from everything we've seen and discussed, that 32% is an aspirational, ambitious, difficult to achieve goal. And if we set the numbers too high, and everybody knows that they're just political numbers and not really achievable, the likelihood of people actually taking action to even achieve 32% is unlikely. So I would caution us from setting goals that staff has told us are not feasible. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Marsden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 32% is based on the considered judgments of staff in terms of what might be feasible. And I agree with Mr. Harris that setting goals that are just aspirational, have limited value. We struggle in Virginia. We have a little different political reality, and this year we were unable to get federal funding for charging stations approved for grants through the budget process. We've been unable to get purchasing of electric vehicle subsidies put in place. So our jurisdictions in our localities in Northern Virginia are sort of held hostage by state policies that we have been unable to move forward. So I agree that we just stick with the 32%. It is based on reasoned judgment and aspirational. It is aspirational in nature as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we now do the vote, please?
Great. So 50% is the yes, 32% is no. So when I ask for your vote, yes means 50%, no means 32%. All right, District Council, Ms. Hanson.
Yes.
District Council, Charles Allen.
Yes.
District Council, Christina Henderson.
Yes.
Office of Planning, Ms. Khan.
Yes.
District Department of Transportation.
Yes.
Moving on to Maryland, City of Bowie.
Yes.
Charles County.
Yes.
College Park. we'll come back to Mr. Willian. Frederick County.
No.
City of Frederick.
No.
City of Gaithersburg.
No.
City of Greenbelt.
Yes.
City of Laurel.
No.
Montgomery County Executive.
Yes.
Montgomery County Legislative.
Yes.
Prince George's County Executive.
Yes.
Prince George's County Legislative. City of Rockville.
Yes.
Tacoma Park.
Yes.
Maryland House of Delegates.
Yes.
Maryland Senate. Maryland Department of Transportation.
No.
Moving on to Virginia. City of Alexandria.
Yes.
Arlington County.
No.
City of Fairfax. Fairfax County.
Alcorn, no.
Falls Church.
Yes.
Fauquier County.
No.
Loudoun County.
No.
There was another person from Loudoun County. Chris, what was her name?
Karina.
Karina, yeah. Did I do that right? Okay. Manassas.
No.
Manassas Park.
No.
Prince William County.
No.
No.
Second Prince William County? No. Okay. Virginia House of Delegates.
No.
Virginia Senate.
No.
Virginia Department of Transportation.
No. No.
WMATA.
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. All right. So give us a minute to count. Oh, yes. Okay, hold on. I forgot Patrick Willian, and in the chat he said yes, so I have to add him in. Patrick is here. Okay. Is that it? 20 to 17? Yeah. 18 and 18. I got 17. That's what I got.
The most quiet I've ever heard a group of elected officials be.
Yeah, thank you. So, our count, we have counted it right now. We have 19 yeses, 17 nays. So once again, the proposal was to revise the 32% goal in the resolution to 50%, and that proposed amendment, which was not considered friendly, was voted on with 19 members saying yes, 17 members no. So unless there is any other requests on voting, the current vote stands. The amendment would be accepted.
Madam Chair, a point of order.
Yes, please.
Well, maybe not a point of order. Clarification. Is this not weighted voting for this particular vote?
This was not. We could report.
Would you like to request that?
I would like to request a weighted vote, please.
Make sure the entries match. So staff is just confirming. So for the benefit of those, a weighted vote would apportion the votes of the members present and voting proportional to their population relative to the total population of the TPB membership.
clean that, to green the electricity grid for the, and this isn't possible right now to the degree that's needed, right? That's the new problem. And it's out of our control, double everything else. We cannot not burn the bridges to the peripheral north of Virginia. To get there. Oh,
so results of the weighted vote, the A have 8.6 and the nay 6.3. So the proposed amendment will change the 32% reduction by 2030 to 50%.
Conti, is your mic on? I can't hear you online.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to repeat. The results of the weighted vote was the yes is 8.6 and the nays 6.4. So the ayes have it. That means the proposed amendment to change the 32% reduction below 2005 levels by 2030 stands amended to 50% below 2005 levels by 2030. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So are we done with this?
We are now back to the amended resolution, and we continue with discussions, and we need to take a vote.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for the clarification. The resolution now reads 50% below 2005, and I will open up the discussion for those in the room. But let's keep our comments brief. Many of you have had the opportunity to already talk about this, but if there's anyone in here that would like to talk, Mr. Alcorn, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Sabatsky. Especially, I was going to maybe say this if we were at 32, but especially now that we're at 50, the 7 strategies in Table 2 that we're exploring obviously are not enough. So I would suggest, first of all, that we need to have come back to this body probably an exploration of additional strategies. But I have a specific amendment that I would suggest for exploratory strategy number 7, which is the cordon fee or commuter tax. I would suggest eliminating the phrase in the core of the District of Columbia, and I'll just speak to that very quickly. Some of our fastest growing activity centers are not in the District of Columbia. They're in the Dulles Corridor, in Arlington County. Frankly, I think for exploring how this could happen, I think it's important that we understand the new reality, which is not everybody's just driving into the District of Columbia anymore. So I would suggest removing the reference to the core of the District of Columbia in number 7.
Okay. I'm not sure, Conti, since we're voting on this resolution, we just talked about changing the percentage. Now they're asking for a change to language.
In one of the strategies.
Right.
So
now do we need to have everyone vote on that before we go back to the resolution again?
Turn to the maker of the motion to see if they would accept that as a friendly amendment, in which case a vote wouldn't be necessary.
Do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes.
And the seconder, yes. Okay. Mr. Lewis, did you have a comment?
Yes. I think everything we have in Table 2 is reasonable. The only suggestion that I would just put on the table related to the goals for the various types of EVs, I think that our discussions here have been very, very interesting, and because there's a lot we still need to really do critical thinking on. and it would probably be good to set goals for EVs for 2030, 2035, 2040. I just know from my work with ZVIC in Maryland that various transportation sectors are in different places with the technology in terms of EV technology, and even the choice between battery electric and even fuel cell for buses and heavier vehicles. So it might be a good idea to just keep that on there, but just say, we will work to develop, incremental goals, over the next 15 to 20 years, based on the aspirational, incremental goals for various EV sectors, based on the state of the technology.
So if I could.
So these are being explored anyways. I'm not exactly sure what the amendment is that's being asked for.
I was just going to say that part of that exploration could be coordinating much closely with Council of Governments Department of Environmental Program that has a very active engagement in EV deployment. So that is something that could be part of it. So this is one amendment that has been accepted as friendly. So we can go back to the resolution with these two changes. The goal for 2030 has now been changed from 32 to 50. And one of the strategies to be explored is expanding the cordon over which a fee could be considered, not just within the District of Columbia. So those are the two changes. So we could continue discussion on the amended resolution, or you could go to a vote to see what the final vote would be.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Kostick.
Thank you, and understanding we don't have a lot of time here. Building on Mr. Alcorn's comment on number 1 in this section, since we are also exploring it, I would be interested in finding out if others would be open to removing within jurisdictional boundaries. So just being open to considering shifting of location of jobs and housing throughout the region, not making any kind of commentary on what that might look like, but just being open to discussing that. There may be things we should be doing in Tacoma Park that or should not be in Tacoma Park, for example, or other locations that we might want to consider not limiting ourselves to within jurisdictional boundaries.
So is that being offered as an amendment? So yes. We'll turn back to the maker of the motion. Would consider removing that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, I'm easy.
I'm not even sure who's made what motion and seconded things anymore. In the second of this okay. Resolution, that was Casey, so I'm guessing she should be okay with her own amendment.
Okay. We have 2 members online who wish to be recognized. Ms. Okay. Gardner from Frederick County and Mayor Rochelle from City of Manassas Park.
Okay, so let's start with, who is the first person?
Ms. Gardner from Frederick County.
Okay, Ms. Gardner, please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to suggest that since the 50% goal is aspirational, that we should actually describe it as aspirational in number 1 after therefore it be resolved, that first sentence, and make it an aspirational goal where we replace the 32% with 50%. Obviously as an outer county, we have, obviously as an outer jurisdiction, we are doing everything we can to achieve our climate goals. We are fare free on our buses. We do have electric buses. We actually actually charge them with a solar field we've put at our landfill. But, we don't have metros. So we have other challenges in meeting these goals. Which was the reason for my vote. But I do think we should describe it as aspirational since that's what it is. And I do think it should be incumbent on TPB to come back at a future meeting and define strategies that we could do to come close to achieving that 50% goal by 2030, which is a limited time frame. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I think actually TPB has already said that their studies have shown that there's not anything, but we'll let you talk to that in a second, Conti. Let's hear from Mayor Rochelle, and then I'll let you comment to these 2 things, Conti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to staff for the excellent analysis that was done. I want to speak holistically about this. I found it difficult to support the 32% option for various reasons. Some of the strategies did not receive wide support among TPB members on the survey. Also, there's strategies that lack funding to implement. And there's always the issue of having the legal foundation for implementation. The previous option required action that was unprecedented for the region, and the 50% option would most certainly be even more unprecedented. I personally do not believe that this bears comparison to other initiatives adopted so far by the TPB. This is truly unprecedented. So personally, it's difficult to support something that's not realistic and that is not achievable. I would have supported the 23% option, which is still quite aspirational. But thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not able to support 50%. Thank you.
Just a quick time check. We have 10 more minutes, 2 more items. So
I understand. Do you want to comment to anything that's been said? And if not, are we ready to move on to a vote, I guess?
nothing at this time. Thanks.
Nothing.
Madam Chair, a quick question. I see that the word aspirational is highlighted. Was there a motion made whether that's a friendly amendment? If it was, I would say it is a friendly amendment.
Okay.
You said it. You do agree that it's a friendly amendment?
Yes.
And Casey, Casey does not think that. Okay. So I guess we have to vote on the word aspirational. Is that right?
I think the maker of the motion has the prerogative, but okay. If there's another second, I don't know if that would be the process, but we do have a split on whether it is considered friendly or not, adding the word aspirational. There was another member of the board, Mr. Schallenberger from Fauquier County, who had also suggested adding the word aspirational. So.
Before the word regional voluntary. Are you seeking a second now for that?
Yes. The maker of the motion to adopt resolution R18 accepts adding the word aspirational as friendly. The person, Ms. Kostick, who seconded, does not accept it as friendly.
I'm sorry, Conti. This is Brian Lee, City of Laurel, Maryland. I will second the aspirational as friendly, if that's okay.
But still, we're back to the main motion. Since the maker of the motion and the person seconding it has not agreed, we'll probably take a vote on whether aspirational would be added there before we go back to the amended resolution.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and have staff call the roll to, and she will explain, I'm guessing, that yes means you want aspirational added, no means you do not want aspirational added.
Madam Chair, just real quick.
Is that correct?
Yes.
We really weren't going to do any more comments, but I know that people have their hands up. If it's just a specific question about how to vote versus a comment?
Well, the question would be, is aspirational in the right location of this line item? Seems to me it would be better.
The person that asked us to be put there, asked for it to go there specifically.
Right.
If this gets voted down and someone wants to put it someplace different, we would have that conversation again.
I have a comment to make.
If it's only about the motion, other than that, we need to vote on this, and then we can go back to comments on the resolution.
I wanted to add the phrase to this phrase.
We have to vote on whether we're putting aspirational in or out, and then we can go to the next thing. Okay? So I will let staff call. We're voting just on aspirational.
Very quickly, my sense is that aspirational and voluntary are redundant. My comment on the motion.
Okay. Please, I'm calling for the vote because we actually have 8 minutes left in this meeting and we still have 3 more things to do.
Okay. So for R18 2022, we're looking for a vote in order to add aspirational to the first item. A yes vote is to add aspirational, beginning with the District of Columbia. Brooke Pinto.
No.
Charles Allen.
No.
Christina Henderson.
No.
Office of Planning is vacant. Oh, excuse me.
Sakina Khan.
Office of Planning.
That's a no.
No. District Department of Transportation, Everett Lott.
No.
In Maryland, Bowie.
No.
Charles County.
No.
College Park. Not hearing. Frederick County.
Yes.
City of Frederick.
Yes.
That is a yes for the City of Frederick.
Yes.
Gaithersburg.
Yes.
Yes from Gaithersburg. Greenbelt.
No.
No. Laurel.
Yes.
Yes. Montgomery County Executive.
No.
No. Montgomery County Legislative.
No.
Prince George's County Executive.
No.
Prince George's County Legislative. Rockville.
No.
That was a yes from Rockville.
No.
No, that was a no.
That was a no. Okay. Apologies. Tacoma Park.
No.
Maryland House of Delegates.
No.
Maryland Senate. Maryland Department of Transportation.
Yes.
In Virginia, Alexandria.
No.
Arlington County.
No.
City of Fairfax. Fairfax County.
Elkhorn, yes.
Falls Church.
Yes.
Fauquier County.
Yes.
In Loudoun County.
Yes.
Any other votes from Loudoun County?
Yes.
Those are yes. Manassas.
Yes.
Manassas Park.
Yes.
Prince William County.
Yes. Yes.
Virginia House of Delegates.
Yes.
Virginia Senate.
Yes.
Virginia Department of Transportation. And WMATA.
Abstain.
WMATA abstain.
Okay, the yeses have it at 18 and the nays are 17 and one abstention. So the word adopts aspirational regional voluntary on-road transportation sector is accepted. So we are now back to the resolution R18 2020 as amended. We could.
Can we ask for a weighted vote on this?
What's that?
Can we ask for a weighted vote on this?
Sure.
Noes have it.
Is this the latest? Sajja, this is the second one? Okay. The weighted vote has yeas are at 6.2 and the noes are at 8.8, which means that the proposal to add the word aspirational is not accepted based on a weighted vote.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now back to the amended resolution, and just one procedural question. We have two other action items. We'll finish this. We could try and bring them to the next month. It'll be a little bit of a procedural issue. Alternatively, the board can advise and authorize the steering committee to take action on it, which would meet be meeting in about two weeks' time. But we'll handle that separately. So back to the resolution as amended, R18-2022.
So are we able to vote on this resolution now, or do I need to ask for more amendments?
I think it's okay.
Okay.
I would suggest we'd go call for.
I'd like to go ahead and call for the vote on this amendment, and
directly go to a roll call vote.
And we'll go to a roll call vote. We might as well do it weighted because it's good. This seems like that's going to happen anyway, and that way we don't come back to that. So to make it clear and to clarify, we're voting on this resolution, which includes the 50% below 2005 levels by 2030. Okay? So as you vote, know that that's what you're voting for, and I will let her go ahead and call the vote.
Okay. Beginning with the District of Columbia, District Council,
Yes.
and Brooke Pinto.
Yes.
District Council, Charles Allen,
Yes.
is a yes. District Council, Christina Henderson.
Yes.
Office of Planning,
Yes.
District Department of Transportation.
Yes.
Moving to Maryland, Bowie,
Yes.
Charles County,
Yes.
College Park. Coming back, Frederick County,
Abstain.
City of Frederick. Did I hear abstain from the City of Frederick?
Yes, abstain.
Abstain. Thank you. City of Gaithersburg,
Yes.
Greenbelt,
Yes.
Laurel.
Abstain.
Laurel abstains. Moving on to Montgomery County Executive,
Yes.
Montgomery County Legislative,
Yes.
Prince George's County Executive,
Yes.
Prince George's County Legislative.
Yes.
Moving to Rockville,
Yes.
Tacoma Park,
Yes.
Maryland House of Delegates,
Yes.
Maryland Senate, Maryland Department of Transportation.
Abstain.
Abstain. Moving to Virginia, Alexandria,
Yes.
Arlington County,
Yes.
City of Fairfax, Fairfax County,
Alcorn, yes.
thank you. Falls Church,
Yes.
Fauquier County,
Abstain.
thank you. Loudoun County,
Abstain.
and is there another vote from Loudoun County?
Abstain.
Karina, abstain. City of Manassas,
Abstain.
Manassas Park,
Abstain.
Prince William County,
Abstain. Abstain.
Virginia House of Delegates,
No.
Virginia Senate, and Virginia Department of Transportation.
No.
WMATA,
Yes.
okay. And we will be calculating the weighted vote.
Okay, so the vote count, 22 yeses, 3 nays, 11 abstentions, 3 absent. The weighted vote, A's have it at 13.0, and the noes have it at 2.0. So resolution R18-2022 is adopted as TPB's climate change mitigation goals.
Okay. Should I move on? or did you want to make some comments?
We have two more action items. I will defer to the board. Staff would be able to present them in less than 5 minutes. That would mean requesting the board to stay for 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes. Alternatively, the board can authorize the steering committee to approve this. First action is establishing targets for reducing congestion in the region and as well as reducing ozone-related emissions from CMAQ funding. And the second action item is approving TPB's Regional Roadway Safety Technical Assistance grants to 4 applications that have been selected by the selection committee.
Can I get a will of the board? Would you rather stay for till 2:15, or would you rather this go to the steering committee?
Madam Chair, Brian Lee of Laurel. Brian Lee of Laurel, I'm suggesting that we stay because, especially since one of them has grant funding tied to it, I think we need to resolve it now. I'm suggesting that the board stays.
Okay, great. And everyone in the room seems to be willing to stay till 2:15. So, Conti, I'll direct you to have the staff go quickly and let's get this knocked out.
Eric?
For next action, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Here to ask for your approval of performance-based planning and programming targets for the so-called CMAQ program measures. So these measures were briefed to you last month in May. We presented you with draft targets at that time. No comments were received on the draft comments. There is a full report and an explanatory PowerPoint in the materials for this meeting, as well as the resolution. And if we could just pull up the resolution on the screen. Again, this is a federal requirement, and to clarify, these targets are not aspirational. They are data-driven, but ask that, actually, if we could go to the resolution, Kim, but go to the resolution directly. Staff would ask that the board move ahead with approving Resolution R19-2022 to approve the 2022 to 2025 CMAQ program targets in accordance with the federal performance-based planning and programming targets. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move approval of R19-2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Krista Malmstead. Conti, did you have anything you wanted to add before I call for the vote?
No, only thing is these are targets that are set for urbanized areas, so we will have to coordinate the same targets with our MPOs to the south in Fredericksburg and as well as the MPO to the north in Baltimore. We have been working with them and we are coordinated on this target, so thank you.
Great. I dare ask this question, but I'm sure I need to. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'm not going to give people time really. I'm going to go ahead and ask if there are any nays or abstentions from anybody in the room. How about anybody online?
I don't see any line.
Okay, so that looks like that resolution has approval. Okay, let's move on to the Regional Roadway Safety Program approval. John Sherman on staff, is he going to present something to us?
Yes, he's there virtually. John, please.
Thank you, Chair Sebesky. So I am pleased to share with you today the third set of recommended Regional Roadway Safety Program projects. And my remarks today will be extremely brief. So I have provided a memo that has all the information that I might not cover everything at this moment, including maps of the recommended projects that are in your packet. So there is a presentation that should be coming up. And when it does, if you could go right to slide 5, that would be great.
Item 10.
Item 10, slide 5.
And while the slide is coming up, I'll just say one challenge that we had, of course, is that there was $250,000 in funding available and $640,000 in funding requests. So we received 10 applications, and the panel was able to recommend 4 of them. So this slide shows the list of recommended projects. I'll just go over them very briefly. The first project from Prince George's County seeks consultant services to identify roadway safety issues, especially those faced by pedestrians and bicyclists along a 0.8 mile segment of Wheeler Road between Southern Avenue and Iverson Street, and a 1 mile segment of Brooks Drive between Silver Hill Road and Marlboro Pike. It will also provide recommendations, including design recommendations for safety improvements along these segments. Each of these segments are part of Prince George's County's high injury network, which are county-maintained roadways with high numbers of fatalities and serious injuries. And each of these segments are within equity emphasis areas. The next project is from the Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission in Prince George's County. And it is a project that seeks consultant services to determine what types of pedestrian and bicyclist facilities, as well as crossing accommodations, are needed to support roadway safety both in the near term and as the northern parcel of Walker Mill Regional Park is built out. The final product will recommend a set of bicycle, pedestrian, and motor vehicle safety and access improvement recommendations, and will be informed by the recently completed Walker Mill Master Park Development Plan. And this segment is also entirely within equity emphasis areas. And the third project, the City of Rockville is seeking consultant services to identify and develop concept designs for effective safety countermeasures for 2 intersections. One for the Beale Avenue, Maryland 355 intersection, and one for the Beale Avenue, Maryland Avenue intersection. These intersections are within an equity emphasis area and in the Rockville Town Center area. This project is the only one that's partially funded at $50,000 instead of the requested $60,000. And finally, the City of Alexandria has a project to identify and develop design improvements at the intersections of Duke Street, at both South Patrick and at South Henry Streets. This will include preliminary engineering for each intersection, and these 2 intersections are at or near the top of the list of highest crash and crash severity locations in the City of Alexandria. So quick go to the next slide. I'm almost done here. If these are approved today by the board, we will begin consultant selection process later this month and into July, and we anticipate that the projects will be under contract by September. The very next round of the Regional Roadway Safety Program will not be open until January of 2023. And Chair Sobeski, this concludes my remarks, and I recommend the approval of these Regional Roadway Safety Program projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the TPB's Regional Roadway Safety Program grants to projects recommended by the Selection Committee?
So moved.
City of Frederick, so moved.
Okay. Questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none. Move along. Are there any nays or abstentions from those in the room? About those online?
Don't see any.
Okay. So that is unanimously approved. Okay. And unless I'm not reading this wrong, we are done, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So the next meeting, just to remind everybody, will be an all virtual meeting. So look for that information to come from staff, and that'll be on July 20th. Thank you all, everyone, for staying over and getting this done today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're adjourned.